Coach can open with an opening statement, then he'll follow with questions.
Well, I think a lot of our coaches' hard work paid off. You know, we feel really good about the class that we're bringing in. I think a lot of people ask, you know, did you get everybody you wanted? And obviously, you swing the bat, and a lot of kids that you'd like to have in your program. But at the end of the day, you get everybody you wanted because they're yours now. There wasn't one player that we offered that wasn't somebody we wanted in our program and that we didn't want to represent us in Southern Miss. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're excited about the young men we're bringing in, and so I think it's a great start, really start to the 2013 season. So I'll just open it up with questions.
Obviously going in, Coach, how was it to sell coming off the 0-12 season? Was that a factor?
It's always a factor. Winning and losing is a factor, but a tradition of winning, I think, is more of a factor. I think when you have 18 straight winning seasons, I think that's a heck of a lot better than the reverse of that. So I think you sell off that. Like I said earlier today, I think the hardest part is the class last year. I don't think the university benefited off the 12-2 season as much as it could have. You know, it's okay, I understand the 0-12, but it should have benefited more off the 12-2. And then you have a change in staff. So I think that's what you have to do now is you're talking about 2 years in a row of a change in staffs. Now, you know, we're trying to work on, you know, some consistency, some continuity, and building relationships with coaches and players. But Southern Miss has an unbelievable history and tradition and of treating kids the right way and having great football teams. So it's not a problem.
At the quarterback position, obviously maybe not the numbers you would like coming back, you know, not much experience. How do you think they'll address that?
You're talking about our current players? You're talking about adding in
With
and
adding
moving
in,
forward?
yeah, moving forward with the guys that you added in.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a critical position. You've got to have, that's where it all starts. Your team's belief in its ability to win and come from behind late is a direct reflection of who you have playing quarterback. So we obviously know how important that is, and we address that in recruiting. I think we've got talented guys here. Hard to say that because I haven't had a chance to work with them or see them. What I've seen, I think they have ability, at least physical ability. Now it's, you know, will they lead? Will they inspire? Do our guys believe in them? Will they work harder than anybody on the team? Are they one of the toughest players we have on the field? Those are the things that you can't compromise in. They can have different skill sets. They can run, they can throw, but they've got to have those skill sets. So that's what we're looking for.
Did you guys, just looking at this class, is there a particular area or maybe kids, because of a lack of an area, that maybe can step in and help you more than, say, others? In other words, early impact guys.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, you know, I think whenever you take 25 players or approximately that, you know, there are some that are probably further along from a maturity standpoint, physical standpoint, that you would say probably they wouldn't have a chance to play right away. And then others that and then you may have more of a need at a certain position, that even though they're not ready, well, you don't have a choice because you have to play. You can't predetermine decide who's going to redshirt and who's not. You just play, practice, and then see how it all turns out. You know, just like at the quarterback position. That can happen anywhere. You can have a rash of injuries, and then the next guy's got to be ready to play.
How much here in just the short time y'all had looking into the state of Mississippi and trying to have players for there, did y'all find some answers in Mississippi, you believe?
I think so. God, I hope so. You know, the guys we took, I'm hoping they're answers. You know, it's the interesting part of being in the South. You know, whether you're in Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama, you've got a lot of country towns, country schools, some kids that fly under the radar that for one reason or another didn't get as highly recruited. So I think obviously we have to start in Mississippi first, then Alabama, Louisiana, and then, you know, maybe the Texas and Kansas JCs in Atlanta. So, but I did find that there's talented guys in this state, just like in Alabama, Louisiana. You just got to make sure you're picking the right ones.
Coach, could you talk about, once you get hired in, I mean, are you hitting the road, boom, immediately to start getting out?
Well, you talking about when I first got hired?
Yes.
When I first got hired, you were out for 3 days, and then the dead period came. So you end up with 3 weeks where you kind of start and then you stop. And so you're busy with a lot of other things, you know, that fall on your plate. Staff really is the number one thing, putting your staff together. You're constantly still recruiting, and the guys that you've already hired, you are, but you don't get remember, at that point of the year, we're in sales. So the number one way you sell is in person. The next way is on the phone. The third in our business is by mail. Well, when you can't be in person and they can't put a face with a name and a school, that's hard. So then you're basically 3 weeks you're recruiting. That's basically what you're doing for 3 weeks. I mean, you're scrambling for those parents and young men to get to know you, where they're going to trust to send their child. And sometimes you do a better job than others of convincing them that this is the best place for them to come. So, you know, that's just what you do. You assess. You're busy watching film. Do you think they have the measurable skill set that you want? It has to start there, obviously. That's a no-brainer. You first have to figure out, do they have the measurable skill set to do what you're going to ask them to do, and then you have to assess what really makes them tick, because that's really the most important thing. You have a better chance of changing someone's measurable skill set than you do that if someone's not the right person. They don't work hard, if they're not smart, they don't love football, if they don't inspire other people when you practice. That's hard to change. It's hard to change someone's measurable skill set, but it's a lot easier than if you're not the right type of guy.
Was there one area that y'all really focused in on, made sure that had to be addressed immediately because of concerns with?
Oh, you know, obviously quarterback was one, you know. When you're taking 25 or approximately that many players, you have a lot of needs. I mean, you're taking 25 guys, you're really talking about, when you're taking that many potential players, you're talking about, rough estimate, a third of your team. That's a third of your team is now you're going out to get. I mean, so when you watch your guys work out, I mean, there's a reason they don't look as, you don't have as many guys out there with injuries. So I don't think we went after specifically, we had needs in a lot of areas. Maybe not by numbers, you know. But the other thing too is it's hard to assess your players' talent. We weren't around the players. So what is it that, somewhere in there lies the middle. Not all the coaches, not all coaching issues, not all playing issues. So you don't want to say you can't get the players to play better, but you really don't know. Okay, someone tells you, well, this player's not good enough. Well, I don't know that. I really don't know. We haven't been able to be around him. So all we did was try to get the best 25 or so guys that like to play football that we thought would represent us and would develop. Because at the end of the day, you know, as I said before, if you can keep players in your program, they're going to play their best football as they get older. If they don't, then that's a problem. So if you believe in that, then how does that happen? It happens by guys going to class, being smart, working their butt off. So then you have a program that by the end, you've got a bunch of really good seniors. You've developed a program. And then if you've got great players, then you got a chance to win every game. That's really what you're trying to develop. If you want to be the teams that are that, the Kansas States of the world, the Boise's, the Butlers or Gonzagas of basketball, that's how it's built. That's the model. That should be our model.
Are you talking about not just different needs and getting the players that want to play? Is there any particular thing you're looking at, heart, motor always running? Is there anything?
You can name them. It's not that hard. I mean, I'm not trying to be, it's not that hard. When you meet them, do they look you in the eye? Are they bright-eyed? Do they smile? Do they like life? Is our team going to like being around them? Am I going to like being around them? Do I think they compete? Do they flash on tape? Do I think they're going to qualify so they're going to develop faster? Take, for instance, and I'm not talking about always book smart. I'm talking about, do they really understand football? You take, for instance, a history test. And in this class, you have a group of 85 people in that history class. Well, one person might be able to, study the night before and get an A. That was never me, but you have players that can do that. You don't want to get too many guys that it takes them. They can still get an A, but it's going to take them 5 nights of studying, 5 days of everything they have to get it. Do you have to do that? Sometimes, of course. You'd like to get somewhere in the middle where they're going to understand what you're talking about and be able to process. Because our job as coaches is to maximize our players' measurable skill set. How does that help? If they understand what we're talking about, if they understand football, they get to places faster, they really understand what you're saying to them. If they don't, offenses are getting so much more complicated now, and so are defenses. You just can't just line up just because you're fast and you can run and hit. There's more to it. Just look at the teams that are winning. Stanford winning, Northwestern's winning. They're winning with good football players that get it. So that's what you try to do. You get good football players that get it.
Yourself working at LSU and Louisiana Tech and a bunch of other guys working in this region? Did that make things a little easier settling back in the recruiting trail?
What makes it easier is, obviously, when you talk to somebody where you've been, if you've been somewhere in the area, you know, that raises eyebrows. You can say you've been in the SEC, you've been in the Big 12, you've been in the NFL. I've been at every level. So you promote that, hey, we can do it as well as they do it because I've been there, I've seen it. It doesn't have to be on a grand scale, right? It doesn't. We're not going to be that. That's fine. We don't have to be that. We can't be. So but you can do everything to make it as run as well, as efficiently. We can treat the players as well as anywhere else. So I think that's what we were trying to do. You try to get across. And then ultimately, they have to buy into your school. They have to buy into you. At the end of the day, when it's you and another team, you're basically saying it to them, are you buying their coach, or you buying me? You buying Southern Miss, or you buying their school? You buying their history, or you buying ours? What are you buying? At the end of the day, you've got to get them to buy your product. That's what it's sales, right? You've got to turn the hat around, and now this is what you're doing. At the end of the day, you buying me, you buying our program, you buying our players, you buying the history. If you are, then come our way. If you're not, then you've lost them. Unless they have nothing, which happens sometimes. It really doesn't matter who they had. It's, are you happy with what you got at the end of the day?
How many guys were y'all sweating at the end? As far as
One.
Do you mind talking about who the one was, or
Yeah, it was Gerald Sterling.
was it one of those where it just came down to today or last 24
I have
hours?
no idea. So 3 days ago, we thought he was coming. So, you know, somebody asked me, am I happy that it's over? No, because I want more time to recruit Gerald Sterling. So people can act like it, you know, yeah. I mean, but the whole thing is the process, okay? I thought we did everything we could to try and convince him that this was the best place for him. Okay, I really do. So in that, I have no regret. There's times when that doesn't happen. There's times where you don't feel like, okay, God, if we just would have done this. You do that in game preparation stuff. At the end of the day, if we did everything right, I feel good, but you're still disappointed. My whole thing is we lost communication with the kid. And so you're frustrated, you don't have answers. All you want is answers. You want closure to something, and we didn't get that, so.
You guys were able to get into some place that Southern normally doesn't go, you know, drop a fishing line in, up in Oxford, up in New Hope, up northeast areas. Can you talk a little bit about how you get on those kids? Was that an all-star game kind of deal?
Somewhat. I
Okay.
mean, you know, you come in and you just start scrambling. You just start gathering information, talking to coaches, watching film. You know, you go and assess them. They may be working out. You go to assess their athletic ability. They may be somebody that's right on the edge of an offer somewhere else, maybe in the SEC. You know, and but we went through. We exhausted a lot of tape, a lot of time, a lot of energy. You know, looking at a lot of players, committed a lot. We looked at everybody committed in our footprint. I mean, you name it. Anyway, in the states we recruited, we looked at the commitments first. Where were they committed to? And then we watched all of their film. Was there someone we wanted to go and target? I don't care if it was from Jacksonville State to LSU, where it was. Obviously, you understand the differences when you're trying to compete, right? Your ability to change their mind. Then you go with other players, why aren't they committed? Why are they still out there? And again, like I said earlier today, every player you recruit has a flaw. In the NFL, even in the draft, there is no sure thing. We're human beings, we're not robots, we have flaws. As I said there, my wife has flaws, I have flaws, we just choose to live with them. I mean, that's just it. I mean, well, I have a flaw, I have lots of flaws, my wife has flaws. Your players, you're going to take your flaws, you just have to decide what flaws you want to live with. And as I tell everybody, we'll never recruit to stars, never. You get a short-term reward, okay, but in the end, you have to live with them. At the end of the day, it's, you walk into a room and there's 10 people, there's 10 women there, I'll just say 10 women, and where do your eyes go first? To the prettiest. Well, that doesn't always mean that's best for you. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that fits you, it's someone you want to take home, someone you want to marry and spend the rest of your life with. It doesn't. So you have to always go through that. Just because someone's a 4-star or someone else is recruiting, you can get competitive. You can try and convince them to come, but then you have to live with them. You're the one that has to develop them. So that's what you're always fighting. You just are. And yet you get competitive. I know what it's like. I've been there. You know, I've been where I was at when I first got hired in Eastern Michigan, and we were recruiting a guy that's 15 years ago, and he was committed to someone else, and I went and watched him play basketball, and I didn't like him. I thought he was okay. I got in the home, and he was committed to some of the school. I found myself battling to try and compete for a guy I didn't want. I swear, you know, that's what you do. You get in that arena, you start fighting, and you go, well, I didn't even want him then. You know, why am I doing this now? So you have to be careful of that. Enjoy the ones you want, have all the criteria you're looking for, you know? And then you just have to stick with your guns and don't let somebody else tell you. Because then at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror. You can say, if it didn't work, it didn't work. But we did the process the way we saw it, the way I saw it to be done. If I got my chance, I'm gonna do it this way. And then if it wasn't good enough, it wasn't good enough.
But, you know, a kid like Dylan Bradley, for example, you know,
Yes.
he's right in that backyard kind of deal with Mississippi State there, but to get him down here and just, I mean, folks are a little, I mean, if folks are talking about the kids or whatever, he's one of the guys that you hear a lot about, you know.
He's a
just
good
in the
football
chit-chat.
player. He's a good football player.
Yeah.
So I'll be surprised if he's not a good football player. Usually if they do it on film, they do it here. Usually if you're kind of guessing and you're hoping and, you know, like I said, when you go to a high school, I mean, you know, you want the coach to say, you won't come back in here and be disappointed. You know, he'll be this for you. You walk in there and the guy's like, he's got a lot of talent, but you gotta be careful of those guys. Your risk reward is this. You have to make sure, whenever you're in recruiting, that your reward is gonna match that risk. So when the bottom end goes all the way here, it better be all the way here. You better think he's an NFL top pick if he's got all this baggage, because otherwise, if it's here, it's not worth it. You better know what you're getting and you're risking because the bottom is so far. So you have to be careful. I like to find as many guys that I think the bottom end is low, the high end is high. That's what you're trying to do, I mean, right? I mean, that's simple, but you're trying to find, okay, I don't think he goes further beyond this. He may be a really good player, but if we luck out, man, he's this. But you're not gonna fall so down to where you lose 10 of your 25 class or 15, you're sitting there going, well, we never got a chance to develop them. They're gone. What do you do now? Now you're always young guys, you're never good enough to really win big. I don't think so.
When you were hired, you talked about you wanted to find guys that love to play the game, love to play football. Would you characterize this class as those kind of guys?
God, I hope so. It really stink to say that, and then they aren't.
Yeah.
So I hope so. And you gotta filter through that.
And you'll find out.
You know, you gotta filter through that. I don't wanna find out when they're here. You know, if we get lied to, but you gotta go through all of the different channels. Coach, does he love football? Yes. What does that mean? Okay, you gotta make them expound on it. You know, what does that mean? You know, does he love to lift weights? Does he enjoy, you know, has he ever just missed practice? Does he ever just not show up? You know, it's one thing to say it, it's another, you know, because football's hard. It's hard to put the pads on. It's no fun to work out. It's no fun to put the pads on. It's no fun to be away when we get dog cussed. That's not fun. The fun's in winning, seeing the fights on. That's the end. But do they understand that? Do they understand the competition? They like to hit. It's a physical game, you know. Or is it just they've been so good? How do they view it? Do they view it like bowling? Or do they view it as something that's a passion? You have to find that out as best as you can. Because you're just trying to shrink the margin for error. You're never right all the time. I mean, you make mistakes. But if you make fewer mistakes, you give yourself a better chance of winning.